On this episode of Mythbusters, it's a shocking state of affairs. Adam and Jamie have a Mythbuster meltdown.
I'm just expressing my opinion, and I'm not giving you about your opinion.
And find themselves in over their heads to make killer quicksand.
If the pump stops during the experiment, we could die because we'll be encased in 20,000 pounds of sand.
And see what happens when tattoos and technology meet. Can body art go boom? Who are the Mythbusters?
Am I missing an eyebrow?
Adam Savage.
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
And Jamie Heineman.
Quack, damn you.
I wouldn't say Jamie's an evil genius.
Between them, more than 30 years special effects experience.
When will the fun ever stop?
They don't just tell the myths, they put them to the test. Few things are more shocking than Adam in a bathrobe, but the first myth gets close.
What's with the bathrobe?
Well, Jamie, this time we are attacking one of the classic Hollywood movie myths, which is simply, if you threw an electrical appliance into my bath, I'd get electrocuted.
Right, well that means appliances. Our favorite haunts.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
As Adam said, this grisly death is a favorite with filmmakers. Take Chucky, for example. Our demonic doll gives the bathing beauty a bath time buzz.
Lots of appliances. And I see some ground fault interrupters on them.
So there's a rule here about these?
Thrifttown cannot sell hair dryers without GFI switches for safety purposes, which means, you know, if these are dropped into a bathtub, they would turn off
Immediately.
immediately. Yes.
A ground fault interrupter detects any sudden change in the flow of electricity and immediately shuts off the current.
Older appliances don't have ground fault interrupters, and so they're potentially more dangerous. So we need to get some of those.
Here's a radio. This would definitely be next to your bathtub.
What about this? You know, it's like zzz, versus zzz. I think this has got more power to it.
No, I think it's this one.
We have a small TV that'll fit into the bathtub.
Oh, that's perfect. That's exactly the television we need.
Honey, I'm home.
The Mythbusters have wildly differing ideas about what will happen when these pre-loved appliances hit the water. Jamie's negative.
The analogy that I have about what would happen would be about like lowering a light bulb into the water of the bathtub after you put the toaster in and expecting the light bulb to light up. Now, I know that's not going to happen.
Adam's positive.
He doesn't realize that the live power of the AC is going to come through one leg. The bathtub with the drain pipe is going to ground to earth, and you will be a very fabulous conductor of electricity in that short journey the electricity is making from the appliance to the ground, and it will kill you very quickly, I believe.
Do I know that you won't get electrocuted? I'm not so sure that I'm ready to jump in the tub quite yet, but I don't think so.
To be honest, if Jamie doesn't think anything's going to happen, I have no problem dropping a hairdryer in the bathtub while he's sitting in it. But something tells me he won't.
Adam, we have about every possible appliance you could drop in a bath, and a few more. What's next?
I don't want to test this in just any old bathroom. I'd like to actually have an isolated bathroom where we can get clean tests safely with this. So I'm thinking about having one of the teams of builders build us a bathroom set that is, you know, fully isolated, insulated, and waterproof with a grounded bathtub in it, and perhaps above that something like a resettable collapsing shelf where we can put the appliance on and continually fall into the tub.
Tori and Christine, that's your cue. The boys need a bathroom.
All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to recreate a real bathroom, as close to a real bathroom as possible. So I'm gonna put up 2 walls here, we're gonna tile it, and then I'm gonna have a bathtub here, a sink there, and a toilet there, and hopefully that'll give them what they need.
Rented it for $10, and it's dripping on me. God knows what's in this water.
And the glamour doesn't end there.
Oh, yeah. I always get the best jobs.
Of course, they'll need to know how much current is flowing through the water.
This is an amp reader going through, the ground is going to go through that so we can read our amps. And then this is going to go attached to the drain of the bathtub to ground the bathtub.
Now, according to Adam, amperage, not voltage, is the killer. And the lethal limit? He says 70 milliamps.
Right.
Pump somebody with 1,000,000 volts and it's going to hurt him, but if it's under 70 milliamps,
You're not gonna
it's not
kill
going
him.
to kill him. Your average static electricity shock that you can feel is
Yeah.
like 10 to 30,000 volts.
Now, the basic idea is this. There's a body in the bath, in this case, a dummy made from ballistics gel. 2 copper paddles in the dummy's chest represent the heart. The paddles are wired up to a relay, which will trip when the current passing between them hits 70 milliamps. That means death. The bathtub's insulated and ready to go. Now, they need someone to get in it.
So what we've got to do is we've got to make a full ballistic gel body for the appliances in the bathtub myth. And we're going to use this old mold that Jamie has, which is a beautiful fiberglass mold. We're going to have to seal this puppy because ballistics gel filling all the way up, if it starts to leak, we're absolutely screwed. And we ran into trouble on that last season.
This time, he's taking no chances. Once the mold has been well greased with lard,
Jamie's built entire special effects sets out of lard.
it's sealed tight with silicone and aluminum tape.
Just for safety's sake, double. We do it double. Once we do the whole scene, we'll go back and do it again. Okay.
Now, just pack ice around the mold.
Whoa! All right, well, let's start getting our buckets and pouring it. Pray God we have enough.
Pour in the liquid gel and wait for the dummy to set. Adam's feeling just a little nervous.
Let's get on our knees and pray. I don't know to whom. Is there a patron saint of ballistics gel? Killer quicksand. Is that why I'm standing here in this stupid pith helmet?
No, you're standing there in a stupid pith helmet because you're an idiot. The myth on this one is not whether quicksand exists, it's whether killer quicksand exists. Like you see in the movies, the stuff that actually sucks you down.
So we're going to try and replicate a killer quicksand that would have some kind of suction effect or something that would drag someone all the way under.
Exactly.
It's another classic Hollywood horror. Johnny Weissmuller could always rely on killer quicksand to swallow Tarzan's enemies. But is there even a grain of truth in the killer quicksand story? Can you really be sucked down into a bottomless pit?
It's right around the corner up here, right?
Yeah, have you ever been there before?
Yeah, this is the place I've bought fake eyeballs.
The funny thing is, no one knows if killer quicksand exists, but everyone knows what to do if they ever fall in some.
Isn't that the myth, the myth about quicksand, that you shouldn't fight it? You should, the more you fight, the faster you sink?
Yeah,
At least that's what I saw in the Tarzan movies.
Exactly.
Jamie's already got a particular sand particle theory.
So there's got to be some kind of threshold of fineness where at a certain point it just will stay in suspension like mud.
Right. Well, but then we need something that we need like the lowest density stuff you've got.
A bag of your finest sand, please. And we do mean your finest. The guys settled on 2 types of fine-grained sand and some clay powder.
So, Bob, if we come up with some killer quicksand, we'll give you the recipe so you can, and keep your patrons
I
informed.
probably have customers that would like to have it. So yeah, that'd be great.
The question isn't whether quicksand is real. It's real, all right. Just ask Gerald Gray.
I was horseback riding with my family. I was about 8 years old. It was on the Santa Ana River in Southern California, which is a very sandy bottomed river. And we knew it had quicksand, but we never could tell where that was going to be. Their horses missed it and got to shore. My horse went down. He sank to his belly, and I was afraid to get off, and I was warned not to get off because there was quicksand between me and shore. But we managed to get ropes from the horses on shore to my horse and pull him out. Otherwise, he would have perished if he'd been alone.
Quicksand is the result of a process called liquefaction. Water rising from under the ground oversaturates the sand or soil, reducing the friction between the particles until they can no longer bear any weight. When it comes to the full-scale test, Adam and Jamie will need to know the density of their quicksand mix. If it's more dense than normal water, it might be a little difficult to sink. So myth-turned Christine is sent off to make a hydrometer, an instrument which measures the liquid density. A hydrometer is a float with a calibrated stem. Lead shot acts as ballast, keeping the float vertical. You take the reading at the point where stem and liquid meet. Unfortunately, one little slip and Christine's up to her neck in trouble.
Now you've just ruined my threaded rod. This is trash. So
I'll give you the $1.50 later, okay?
chuck it onto the nut. Think before doing.
Yes.
See, that's not a big mistake on that thing over there. $30,000 machine. So don't do anything without thinking. You know, just stop and think again before you turn anything on or do anything with this until you're really at home with it. Christine's a really hard worker, which is a good place to start. Unfortunately, she doesn't know anything.
Jamie is a very good teacher, actually. He'll pick things that are just out of my range of ability, show me how to do them, and then go away. Walk away and say, I need this by 4, which is actually very effective with me, so.
One of the things that we do here for a living is normally using tools and materials in ways that they're not intended to be used. That's what we do. So when we've got junior people involved with that kind of thing, I have to kind of stop and make a mental note. I'm like, this is a potential hazard. You didn't glue that in upside down, did you? I can't leave you alone for a second, can I? I think we need to test it in scale first because, you know, the real deal is going to involve a lot of material, so we want to kind of figure out what works best first. And I figured we rig some 5-gallon buckets, maybe some ways of plumbing them with water to come up through the bottom of the sand. That probably involves some sort of filter device on the bottom. And then once we get it all dialed in and figure out how it works, we'll know what we're going to do on the big version.
And we'll see if there's a difference between how the different sands behave, you know, with this kind of flow of water through.
Exactly.
Time for a small-scale test. First, regular sand.
Fill her up. Ah, cool.
Supports it, no problem.
Right. In fact, I can push on it, and I can't push it down.
Okay.
That's not moving anywhere. The sand
Okay.
is totally compacted.
Okay.
So turn it on really low.
Okay.
But what happens when water starts to rise through the sand?
Look at that. It's sucking it up like a cowboy's horse.
But Jamie thinks the water needs to be diffused more evenly through the sand.
So what's going on?
Slight improvements, I hope. I've got a double diffusion going on here. We sacrificed an extra bucket or two for this, but in between it also is this fabric, which is a much finer weave, and it should hold our fine sand, if not the other things, silt or whatever. And
What about,
that goes into this bucket.
right. How about sealing the outside edge here?
It'll do that. Now that there's no fabric, it actually does a pretty good job of a jam in there.
This time they try one of the sands from the craft store.
Well, at this rate, it's not like I'm plummeting to the bottom, but it is definitely letting me drop a lot quicker than the sand normally would. and it also is resisting pulling back.
Now they're onto something. Or is that into something?
So you think it's about the lowest possible flow?
Yeah. There you go.
That's a lot of suction.
That's enough to cause you a problem if your whole body's doing that.
Well, let's try the finer sand and see if we get a little more control.
Okay.
That's cool. How is it to get back out again? Really easy?
Well, not exactly. I'm going to try and lift it.
Ooh.
So that actually,
The finer sand makes a difference in its suction.
yeah.
What about the clay powder?
Ooh, that feels fun.
Yeah, this isn't working at all. I mean, this is just mud, and it won't let the water flow through it at all.
So they've settled on the type of sand. And the miniature quicksand rig works well. But can they make it work on a large scale?
Oh, I think it's definitely going to work. Look, without a doubt, I think we've got this wired. I think we're going to be able to dial the flow in. It's a lot of stuff to move around. I mean, like 20,000 pounds of sand and 15,000 pounds of water and big pumps and stuff. I mean, it's a hell of a deal.
It certainly is. And soon the pressure will start to show.
I'm just
pretend to
expressing my
care.
opinion, and I'm not giving you shit about your opinion. I'm just saying, I
You
think
give me shit about every one of my opinions.
Meanwhile, Adam and Jamie are trying to find out what happens when an appliance splashes down in your bath. Wow! When that happens, the electrical current leaking from it is drawn towards the metal drain. Now, H2O by itself isn't a great conductor, but the presence of salt helps. And because the human body contains a high concentration of salt water, the current passes right through. It's time to unveil our bath-bound dummy.
Oh, Jamie, we have always dreamed of such a thing.
I think we're good. Let's do it.
He's perfect.
Our first problem has been encountered.
Well, almost.
His arms fell off.
I say we get some carrots and some celery and have a stew.
The copper paddles are inserted into the chest. Ballistics gel has similar properties to human flesh and should conduct electricity the same way.
This relay is set to be tripped at about 6 volts, which we know from experimentation means that there's about 70 milliamps traveling across the heart.
But it wouldn't be Mythbusters without pyrotechnics. So Adam's rigged up a flash pot to ignite when the current hits 70 milliamps.
When we get a lethal voltage across the heart of the dummy, it's going to short this wire, poof, and we'll get a nice poof and we'll all know. And it's instantly reloadable.
The Mythbuster way.
3, 2.
That was cool.
Isn't that good?
Right, this bath is hot. Time to apply an appliance. This hairdryer has a ground fault interrupter, so if the Mythbusters have created a proper circuit, it should cut out the moment it hits the water.
3, 2, 1, go.
Uh-oh, something's not right.
Oh, look at the water flowing.
It's pumping. What is our amperage? What's our amperage?
0.95 AC.
What kind of ground fault interruption is this? It's pumping water. I would say that's bad.
Well, the relay didn't trip, and the ammeter didn't show enough amperage to kill somebody. That's it. I think we should try an appliance without the ground fault interrupter next. So what do we got?
Well, we got a radio. All right, give me the countdown, baby.
Okay, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, drop.
Tori's shelf collapses like a gallows trapdoor.
We're up to 1 milliamp now.
1 milliamp, 1/70th of a lethal dose of electricity. Well, that's bupkis, I believe, is the scientific term for that.
Something's bupkis, Adam. Question is, what? The Mythbusters call in some electrical engineering know-how for a powwow.
Transistor, and then the part that feeds through the transistor.
That says on the coil right there on the...
So it's a current flowing through the bottom.
Turns out there are 2 faults in the system. Adam and Jamie.
Well, Jamie, I mean, this is just a classic Mythbusters screw-up we've got on our hands. First off, the resistance of the human body in the bath is more like 1,000 ohms rather than the 20,000 ohms that we've got read on the ballistics gel. Then it turns out that electrocution is classified as 6 milliamps across the heart, not the 60 we were originally testing for.
And then I screwed up because I had the multimeter on the wrong setting and I was measuring voltage instead of amperage, which meant that we weren't getting the circuit grounded.
Talk about getting your wires crossed. Oh well, even the Mythbusters make mistakes. The guys quickly recalibrate the system.
That's it.
And the GFI dryer takes another dive.
2, 1. Well, the ground fault interrupter tripped immediately, thus proving itself a life-saving device.
Okay, so now the circuit's working. This older hairdryer doesn't have a ground fault interrupter. On each drop, the amount of current across the paddles is relayed to Jamie's computer.
I'd call that dead. Yeah, what are you reading, Jamie? I'm seeing 8.5 milliamps here across the heart.
This one is dead as a dodo, well over the threshold.
All right, shall we power down?
So Adam was way off. Forget 70 milliamps, just 6 milliamps fizzing through a body is enough to cause loss of muscular control, making it impossible to get out of the bath.
Next up, toaster. Smell the danger. All right, you ready?
Recording.
Okay, pulling in 3, 2, 1. Whoa.
Our friend here is toast.
Oh yeah, 12 milliamps. That's very lethal, totally lethal. Toasters, no good. Next item, one of my personal favorites. The curling iron. Let's go.
What are you, Pee Wee Hermione?
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. 4.5. It's going to be really uncomfortable.
I think you got out of the bath by now.
You think you can? Don't forget, we've got 4.5 milliamps at the heart. It means the rest of your body is going to be like, lethal dose is 6 milliamps, but 4.5's got to suck.
4.5 milliamps, it's a little close for comfort. I think I wouldn't want to be in there with that.
And now the iron, or as we refer to it around here, Fierro de los Muertos. Wow, that's the highest spike yet. We got 32 milliamps. This thing is literally pumping death into our subject here.
32 milliamps. That's more than 5 times the lethal limit.
Items that had large heating elements are delivering a lot more current, and that's specifically because a heating element is basically a modified short across wire, so it's a lot of exposure to the water.
The Mythbusters also discovered that if the appliance lands closer to the metal drain, the dose of electricity is drastically reduced because the current has less distance to travel.
We know that you can be electrocuted. Now we'd like to find out what would happen if you added something like bubble bath to the water.
Will the water's conductivity be changed?
Nope, that's not as much as it was the last time. It's only about 11 milliamps. Last time it was 18, I believe. The soap suds don't help it at all. In fact, it seems like it cut it down. Next up, we're going to try 200 mils of fake urine in the bath.
Our urine is just water with salt and food dye added.
Fake weed test in 3, 2, 1.
Well, that's got it. It's just right in the death zone.
And finally, Epsom salts. Remember, salt normally increases water's conductivity.
Big spike.
Wow.
That was over an amp. That'd be huge. You'd be toast. You'd fry. You'd boil.
This from the guy who thought nothing would happen.
I really like this one. We learned a lot on this. You can definitely die if you drop an appliance into the tub.
Oh, absolutely. Surprisingly, it actually turns out that the location of where the appliance falls in the bathtub really has a strong effect on the severity of the shock you'd get.
And what's in the water will determine how quickly you die.
Everyone always wants to know if we're just busting myths or if we're actually confirming them. And this one, 100% confirmed. Yeah, we're done.
The Mythbusters are trying to create quicksand. Not ordinary quicksand, killer quicksand. Stuff that'll suck you right under.
I'm pretty sure it's going to work. It's just a question of how well, because while I know that we can sink in there, I don't know how fast we're going to get it. The ideal would be to get so you plummet in there, but then you get stuck.
For this one, the guys are going to need one mighty big bucket.
Whoa! Stop!
This 2,000-gallon tank has played a starring role before on Mythbusters.
Hey, Adam, did you hear the guy tell us what this was for?
What was it for?
It was like fecal matter.
So I'm going to cut this tank down to just over 8 feet from the inside. Oh, that was really satisfying. These gauze holes will actually allow water to get out, but keep the sand inside, and that'll make the top of our quicksand not like a slurry, but actually look more like sand, which, you know, is more realistic to what people think of quicksand looking like.
Meanwhile, Jamie and Christine start work on the diffuser. The gauze will let water rise into the tank, but stop sand from flowing back into the pump.
So what we've got is a huge 6-foot tank, about 8 feet high. We're going to feed water up through this diffuser into 7 feet of sand. And when we get that water to flow at the right rate, what we should end up with is quicksand.
Our task is not only to build quicksand, but killer quicksand. And I have my doubts that we'll be able to do this because when you start to think about what's involved, the sand actually makes it harder for you to drown in it because it's in effect making the water more dense. Water with sand in it is heavier than water without sand in it. Hence, you're going to be more buoyant.
This pool will serve as the catch basin and reciprocating tank for our quicksand rig. You're looking good. Another foot. All right, that ought to do it. Yeah!
The tank's in position.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's time to fill the pool. And that's when the quicksand experiment gets a little sticky.
Crank it all away.
Adam wants to call in a fire hose and get the job done quickly. That means getting permission to use a hydrant, phone calls, probably some expense. But Jamie's happy to use his garden hose.
It's a little under 30 seconds for 5 gallons.
All right, which means 10 gallons a minute. So 10 minutes is 100 gallons, 1,000 gallons is 100 minutes, 2,000 gallons is 200 minutes. It's just over 3 hours to fill that tank, and then another probably hour or 2 to get that pool. So it's 5 hours of filling. That's as opposed to doing the fire hose where it's like 40
3
minutes.
hours and 20 minutes.
His partner won't budge. Under that beret is one stubborn Mythbuster.
But
Nope, we can continue to not err on the side of caution and just waste time because you're cheap.
I'm just expressing my opinion, and I'm not giving you your opinion. I'm just saying I think it's a
about every one of my opinions. Every last single one of them. You have a different one, and you talk until I can't stand to hear you talk anymore, and then we go with your idea.
Yeah, you baby. You know, now I got to listen to you whine about it all the time, and you know, the whole time it's filling, it's like, wah, wah, wah.
I like to do things efficiently and kind of fast, and Jamie is always looking for the kind of lowest amount of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like the least amount of effort involved. So he wants to go with just the garden hose, where I like to go with the fire hose. The fire hose, I know the whole thing's full inside of like 15, 20 minutes, you know, but the garden hose is going to take several hours.
But there's no time for tantrums.
I'm going to go turn on the water.
20,000 pounds of sand have just arrived.
That's a lot of sand.
Along with an engineering geologist who knows plenty about quicksand.
more easily forms in a situation where you have very fine sand. In fact, geologists sometimes call it sugar sand. So most of your quicksand is in really fine-grained sand.
So Tom, the 20,000 pounds of sand we've got here, is this great for quicksand?
Oh, this is probably as good as it gets because it's very fine-grained and there's so much surface area here that when the water flows through it, it means the water can grab onto that and that'll create the quick condition.
This irrigation pump can move up to 1,400 gallons of water a minute. But if it stops while Adam and Jamie are in the quicksand, the sand will suddenly compact. And the Mythbusters will have some pressing problems. Adam and Jamie are suddenly facing danger on two fronts. On one hand, the guys could be sucked under by killer quicksand, or they could be crushed.
Tom's pointing out quite realistically that if the pump stops during the experiment, we could die because we'll be encased in 20,000 pounds of sand, is cause for real concern.
Before I talked to Tom, I wasn't that concerned about going into the quicksand, but I think he has a good point, and we should be careful with this.
We'll leave Adam and Jamie to ponder their fine-grained fate. There are a host of medical-related myths swirling around cyberspace. Remember the government mind-controlled chips being placed in the arms of blood donors?
Little sting, here we go.
When Adam and Jamie busted that one, it was a shot in the arm for science and common sense.
I don't notice anything at all. I feel perfectly normal now.
Now the build team have got another myth that'll really get under your skin.
You guys are gonna love this one. Our next bit is called the exploding tattoo. Apparently, the myth goes that if you have some sort of decorative tattoo and go into an MRI, the tattoo explodes.
Oh, are you worried?
Well, I'm assuming that you guys are going to put me into an MRI.
Let's outline the situation. Tattoo ink, especially ink used more than 20 years ago, contains traces of metal. A magnetic resonance imager, or MRI, is basically a powerful magnet with a force at least 30,000 times greater than the Earth's magnetic field. When metal fragments in the tattoo meet the MRI magnet, so the story goes, the result is a lot more painful than actually getting the tattoo in the first place.
So are you going to get an MRI?
No.
No?
No.
You understand that the job on Mythbusters is to put your body to the test. And being the one with tattoos, I think you need to go at least have an MRI on your arm.
Come on, Scotty. Adam and Jamie are about to throw themselves into quicksand. The least you could do is stick your inked up arm in an MRI. After all, it is for science.
My ghost dog.
I think she actually looks scared.
She looks cute in that nightgown,
Staff here have heard the exploding tattoo story, but don't think Scotty will wind up incapacitated.
1 or 2 patients out of 100 who have a tattoo and an MRI scan to have a reaction, but the reactions that have been described are all minor, consisting of a little bit of discomfort or some redness at the tattoo, but nobody has described exploding tattoos.
Do you think it's possible that the magnetic field is inducing some sort of current in the pigments or in the material in the tattoo?
It's possible, but it seems unlikely because usually to get induced currents you need lengths of wire or loops, so it's hard to see how these tiny particles could have currents induced in them, but nobody could say it's not happening for sure.
Are you okay?
What's that smell? It smells like sizzling bacon.
At the first sign of trouble, the scan will be stopped.
Looks like a T-bone steak.
Yeah.
An MRI scan targets the body's billions of hydrogen atoms. The atoms line up with the strong magnetic field and are then bombarded by radio waves. The radio waves are absorbed by the atoms and the resulting signal sent to a computer, which turns the data into a 2D image.
Is there any distortion in the image or sign of the tattoo?
No.
No?
Scotty's arm full of ink is still intact. No pain, no discomfort, no explosion.
No, you're looking all right.
But of course, the tattoo myth ain't busted yet. The build teams barely scratched the surface.
We still have to bust this myth. It looks like we're gonna have to do some experiments. We're gonna have to get the compounds that go into all of these pigments and test them individually to find out what could cause any sort of irritation or explosion.
So what goes into tattoo ink? The pigments are a potpourri of chemical compound, including iron oxide, zinc oxide, and titanium dioxide.
So the theory is the metallic components that are used in tattoo pigments have been having some reactions with the MRI magnetic field. So what we have here are a couple of those components. We have iron oxide, we have the copper and the zinc, and the mercury. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to expose some of these materials to a strong electromagnetic field.
We can see if the pigments line up with the magnetic field. Secondly, if the theory is that there's sort of a current being induced, we have a voltmeter to check for that. And of course, if the pigments are creating some sort of excitation in the skin and heating it, we have a thermometer to check and see if there's any temperature difference.
Which compound is the culprit? One by one, they're tested.
Okay. Copper and zinc.
But only one, iron oxide, reacts to the magnetic field.
After all of that testing, it looks like iron oxide is definitely the culprit here. I mean, you could see it just moving over the magnetic field. It would line up.
Well, we still need to make a tattoo explode. So what I'm thinking is we'll make our own ink. Mix in some iron oxide, make it a thick batch, and then tattoo someone. I figured you'd be the good person who would try it on.
No, no, no,
All right.
no.
The Junior Mythbusters are trying to make tattoo ink that will explode in an MRI. They're going shopping for art supplies at the butcher's.
We need some pork.
But yeah, but it has to have the skin left on it.
Okay.
Oh, look at that.
You got the meat off the skin. So what's it gonna be, the leg or the belly?
Don't ask me, I'm a vegetarian.
I would say we should go with the belly. I mean, it's like a nice big canvas that we can draw.
It's probably a little more tender as well.
Hey, look, it still has little hairs on it.
This is my old friend Maddie, and he is responsible for the new ink on my arm.
Welcome, Maddie.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And he's here today. He's gonna show us how to tattoo on our pig.
All right.
Hey, Maddie, you ever tattoo a pig before?
No, I never tattooed a pig. I was told to try pig ears when I was learning how to tattoo, but I never tried a pig. I used my own leg.
Matty's heard the MRI myth too.
I don't think that it's true because I would hear a lot more about people coming back to the tattoo parlors and being like, what happened to my tattoo? But I've never heard anybody come into a tattoo parlor and say, I went and got an MRI and my tattoo exploded. You know, I think that would be pretty big news.
The pork is cut into portions. Matty will use two different inks, a regular tattooing pigment and a special brew full of iron oxide, the one compound that reacted to the electromagnet.
So, Maddie, here's the ultra metallic pigment. Check it out, see if you think the consistency is good enough.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Right, it's time to get some pigment into this pig.
It's kind of gross.
You're not getting near my arm. You're not getting near me with that thing.
Carrie, it might be safer if you stick to felt tip.
Let's see if there's any change near it.
Careful your credit cards and stuff again. Make sure you don't wear a wallet.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, look at that. I have bobby pins in. I could feel that, too.
Back at the MRI machine, the super iron oxide ink takes on a life of its own. The container is suddenly sucked right into the core.
So that ain't gonna work.
Yeah, that ain't gonna work.
That was completely nutty. The iron oxide got completely sucked into the magnet.
Yeah, the box flew right off, and that was pretty cool.
Thank goodness we taped the top. Otherwise, I don't think they'd let us come back.
The pork bellies are primed for scanning.
Okay, so this is our special Mythbusters Super Iron Oxide ink.
So if anyone's going to explode, it's going to be this one.
There's a glitch on the image. The heavy iron oxide content seems to be having an effect.
So you think that what we tattooed is actually making an interference on your scan?
Definitely.
But it's not explosive.
Well, it didn't explode, so go ahead and blot it and see if any of the pigments came up.
No. No. No pigment's been pulled to the surface.
All right, so next one we're going to do is the traditional iron oxide, what you normally find in a regular tattoo parlor.
The iron oxide in the regular ink also interferes with the scan, but the effect is much smaller. But in the end, Scotty, Tori, and Carrie are left with chunks of unexploded tattooed pork.
All right, Scotty, exploding tattoos, tell us what you came up with.
Well, clearly iron oxide is the culprit here. Iron oxide definitely reacts to the magnetic field, and it's very common in a lot of tattoo inks. But at most, it's going to cause heating. There was one case of a blister with the operators that we talked to, but it's not going to explode.
So you're telling us there was no exploding tattoo?
No, Jamie, I know that disappoints you, but I'm a little relieved about that.
So myth confirmed, plausible?
Myth busted, I'm saying.
The Mythbusters killer quicksand rig's almost ready.
Push up, push up.
My foot was stuck under it, sorry.
Well, you know, we make this stuff up as we go, and it's always surprising when it actually works like we thought it would, and that's kind of the way this looks like it's doing. Everything's coming together relatively quickly. Very good.
Oh, look at that, that's beautiful.
Just gotta hope it works.
If this valve right here failed, the pump would cease to put water into the tank and our sand would become a deadly solid mass of sand that we would be in.
There's nothing like a huge piece of earth-moving equipment to bring out the boy in Adam.
You're good. Stop.
Well, how about that?
Now I gotta figure out how we're gonna get at that underside. That's pretty scary letting it go all at once. There she goes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, look at the bag drain. Oh, that is so cool.
What do you think? I got my own island. All right, well, the tank is full of sand and water, and we're sort of primed.
Well, let's turn on the pump and start getting some hydration to the sand. Wow, Jamie.
Oh my God!
No problem at all, man. It's going right away. Jamie?
Yeah?
I believe we have quicksand here.
Now, Adam and Jamie were planning on having a nice sandy surface, but what they've got is a quagmire and a quandary.
Unfortunately, our outlet ports aren't letting the water out nearly fast enough. These ports up here that I've put in are supposed to let water out before it reaches over the top of the sand so that it can look like a sandy beach and then all of a sudden it turns into quicksand. Unfortunately, the sand is so fine, it's clogging up those ports and the water's just going up and over it.
The rig is working. Everything's working exactly as planned. We just need to figure out how to filter this sand a little better to get something that looks good.
We've put in some cotton batting, which is like stuffing for stuffed animals or actually for quilts. And hopefully the larger surface area of that will allow more water to flow through while still holding back the sand. So we're just about to try it. Yeah, it seems okay. Let's get more sand in.
Meanwhile, Christine's managed to finish the hydrometer without destroying Jamie's workshop.
This hydrometer will give us a reading on this water and will tell us if we put it in the quicksand whether it is more or less dense than this water.
The hydrometer floats in the water and its buoyancy level is marked. Then it's dunked in the tank.
It's floating. That just shows really nicely that the water-sand mixture is a lot more dense than water.
This is what it would be if it was H2O.
So in theory, a person will float better in quicksand than normal water. The killer quicksand myth is on shaky ground.
We have several escape techniques. First and foremost, we have what everyone would want if they were near quicksand, is a vine. Secondly, we have a walking stick, which is often recommended in the literature we've read about quicksand as a helpful tool for getting out of quicksand. And third is a bar, which we can throw across the top of the tank, which I should be able to hold on to in case I get really desperate. And at that point, I'll be making those sounds that you just don't make when you're kidding.
Worst case scenario is that Adam dies. And of course, we don't want to see that happen. I'd hate to have to hunt for another co-host. You know, we've got all the precautions that we can think of reasonably to have on this, and I'm fairly sure that he'll be okay one way or another.
The pith helmet is always a good technique for finding someone who is drowned in quicksand, because it will be floating on the surface there. Oh, look, it's a white sandy beach. I don't feel any danger at all.
You will, Adam, you will. The pump switched on. Water begins to rise through the sand. As liquefaction occurs, Adam gets that sinking feeling.
You know, it feels more dangerous now than I thought. Whoa! Woo, let's go! Well, I started going down really slowly, and then when the water got up to my chest in the sand and water mixture, I kind of felt where I hit my buoyant point, which was just probably right about here. Now we've turned the pump off, and I'll tell you, I'm not going to be able to get back out of here until we turn the pump back on.
Adam is far less dense than the quicksand, and so he's suspended.
I think we've created a very realistic scenario for a worst-case scenario quicksand.
Drown, you bastard.
We're using incredibly fine sand, usually called sugar sand. We've got water bubbling up through it like an artesian well, and you know, when we get it working, we definitely go down it. I got one leg almost. This vine is great. Oh my God.
Now it's Jamie's turn in the tank.
That's amazing. This is just so buoyant. I'm totally floating here. And I'm not touching the bottom, so that, look at the buoyancy on that. I'm like a piece of styrofoam in here.
This is more fun than should be allowed. All right, what is our final verdict on movie-style killer quicksand?
Well, we know that people and even animals have died in quicksand, but it's usually because of exposure of some sort, like dehydration. You know, they were no longer capable of extracting themselves, so they stayed there till they died.
And the elements got to them. So it's not really like the quicksand dragged them under slowly like we see in the movies and then drowned them.
No, in fact, you're quite buoyant because the quicksand is sort of a mixture of sand and water that's actually quite heavy, and you float like a cork on it. The best thing you can do is just lay on your back, and you're going to bob around fairly high up in it, and then, of course, use the vine or the walking stick or whatever happens to be handy to try and gently pull yourself out of it.
So the Mythbusters' final word on Hollywood-style killer quicksand: confirmed, plausible, or busted?
Surprised you even have to ask. It's absolutely busted. No such thing.
I agree. Completely busted.